Big problem now really for Prince Harry, as one can imagine, because what we've seen before of late is the fact that apparently he didn't want to return back here to the United Kingdom unless of course he was dealing with all of those court cases that are still imminent and coming up later this year, and he was demanding security for him and his wife and of course his two children. Fascinating when you think about it, because the alleged statement was to his father, His Majesty the King Charles III, was that, well, if you don't want to see your grandchildren, when apparently he was being booted out of Frogmore Cottage, that seemed to be the relationship at an all-time low. Now, as we know, there's nothing like illness in a family to gather people together and, more importantly, become concerned. And as we told you before, at the age of 75, I found it incredible that Prince Harry was so dismissive of his father's historical day last May, on May the 6th, Coronation Day, basically by zipping in and out as if he was so important that he could only spare that particular time. Now, as often as our late and wonderful monarch has told us over the years, time changes everything. In the fullness of time, as she very eloquently put it, regarding, of course, the pandemic speech, which I've said to you before, I think was possibly one of her best of her reign. She certainly steadied everybody's mind at that particular point. Well, a bigger problem now, as one can imagine, for Prince Harry is, does he now return back to the United Kingdom? And really, does His Majesty the King want him there? Big problems, let me explain. Morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. Nice to have your company. You're all right? Yes, thank you so much. As I said, illness is a problem, isn't it, for all of us? Doesn't matter who you are, we all get something in the end. I know, it's terrible, isn't it? You wake up with a twitch, a groan or whatever. You think, I didn't have that. And you look in the mirror and think, I didn't have that line when I went to bed. Where did that come from? Now, here's the dilemma, of course, if you're on the public stage, the public domain. You see, if Prince Harry now does want to come back and see his father, His Majesty the King Charles III, following, of course, that hospitalisation for that medical condition, then there's two things. You see, it kind of looks slightly petty. And the other side of the coin is this, that certainly I've been told from very senior sources that no one wishes to see Meghan Markle back in the country. But we know how Meghan likes to seize any opportunity. There's no two ways about it. I'm not being unkind. This is a woman really that, as I've said, didn't reach out to her own father, but apparently would still very much like to have a relationship with His Majesty the King, even though she trashed his mother and entire family. Nuts doesn't come into it. But now you see, Prince Harry, as I told you, has now been informed about the condition and obviously has this big dilemma. If he returns alone, it looks like Meghan Markle doesn't care. If she does return, people will say, well, it's an opportunistic moment for her. These are all their own doings. They've put this all together. I'm not being unkind. They did this themselves, no one else. And so now Harry is in this very difficult dilemma because, let me tell you, there is no two ways about it. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, does not want any connection or any meeting, anything to do right now with his younger brother, which puts more added strain on His Majesty the King. Fallouts within families are very difficult, whether it's privately or very publicly, as we know with the British monarchy. So Harry now has to make a decision. Does he simply stay away and see the bad wrath of negative PR? Or indeed, if he does return, how will he be received? I would say warmly by His Majesty the King, not so by Queen Camilla, and certainly not so by Catherine and William, who cite Harry and Meghan as one of their biggest problems of stress. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.